Hi guys, Dia here, and I'm back with an exciting new series that I'm bringing to this channel, and I'm hoping it'll go very well because I'm super excited for it. I'm calling it Otomania, and it's going to be about anything and everything otome. I'm a huge fan of otome games. If you don't know what otome is, they are typically dating sim games that are made for girls. And they're just really fun. They're something I've been playing for years and years now. They're my favorite genre of anime, video game, like you name it, I love it. And so I kind of want to make this series just so I can kind of share my passion for it, because I've never really had an outlet to really talk about how much I love otome games and which ones I like, which ones I don't. So that's what the show is for. I'm super excited. It's going to come out every other week on Mondays, hopefully at 12 o'clock. So please look forward to that. Hit the little notification bell if you subscribe and would like to see more, and you will be notified when these get released. And probably during this era of quarantine time, I will try to actually premiere each video and be in live chat, and there will be days when I might not be able to live chat with you guys, but I hopefully can, and hopefully you guys will be here to live chat with me. But anyways, on to our first exciting, hopefully, episode. I want to talk about a game that is very near and dear to my heart. It is actually the first full-length otome game that I ever actually bought, and it is called Ozmafia. And so I like this series for a multitude of reasons, but I think one of my main things about it is I'm a English literature major, and this game has so many literary references, like the fact that it's, for one, called Ozmafia. The Oz is literally Wizard of Oz, and so it's really cool. The basic premise of the game is that you are a girl who is actually named Fuka, but you can rename her because it's an otome, so feel free to put yourself in there. But for this video, I will be calling her Fuka. So the protagonist is Fuka, and you essentially, as Fuka, wake up in you essentially are being chased. And you wake up in a dark alley, and you have no memories, and you end up in this town, essentially, that is overrun by mafia. Not overrun, it's run by mafia. And so there are different mafias, and you end up being found by the Oz Mafia. And so they take you in, and you get to interact with other mafias, but mostly on Sundays, because those are the peace days. If you interact with them not on Sundays, it's typically in the midst of a battle. But you essentially are kind of welcomed into the Oz Mafia as a guest, and from there you kind of get to go about your normal day. And the really interesting fact about how this game dynamic works is that it's kind of broken up, I guess, by weeks is how I would describe it. And so in almost every single route, it follows a certain pattern. So there are events that will happen no matter whose route you are going down. But then there will be your Sunday, in which you can pick from any of the routes and interact with more specific characters. And so the kind of more general events are kind of just to keep your place in the storyline, and then your Sundays are when you get to actually interact one-on-one. But your choices for the regular events do have effects in your relationships. So I thought that was really cool. This game is you can put so many hours into it, which is something that I have quite recently done. I've owned the game for years, but only just within the past month have I actually been playing it in order to complete it instead of just for fun. And I have done, in total, I've put in 98 hours into this game. So I tried to 100% the CGs, which I accomplished, and I will get into in a second. For those who don't know, CG means character graphics. They are typically really nicely illustrated pictures that you get as like rewards for certain scenes or events. And I will put some up as examples. But in order to do that, you have to play the game so many times. So essentially, most Otome games, I would say, typically have anywhere from 5 to maybe 7 guys who you can have a route with. A route is typically your guy and his path, and there are multiple endings per route. And Ozmafia is nice because there are many routes. There are 10 routes in total, 9 of which are main routes, and 1 of which is more of like a hidden route. But it's also interesting in the fact that 3 of the guys, and they are the 3 Oz guys, so it's kind of easier to differentiate. Cara Mia, Kiri, and Axel. They actually have really interesting things in which most routes only have 2 endings. These 3 characters have 4 endings. These 3 characters allow you to start on one of them and then switch to one of the other 2. Which I have to say is a very interesting dynamic. It's not something you typically see a lot of the times in Otome games. The fact that because like you can start on one guy's route and kind of like play around, but then once your route is set in stone, it's typically set in stone and you can't kind of like try other guys out. Whereas these 3 characters are built on the basis of you can kind of go around, do whatever you want, and then once you're on one of them, you get to be on the route for a little bit, and then you come to a crossroad where you can either stay on that character's route or you can switch to one of the other 2. So let's say I was playing Cara Mia's route, and halfway through, if I raised enough points, I could have the option to switch to Axel's route. And so if I were to switch to Axel's route, I could have a choice of 2 new endings that are different than if I just played Axel's route all the way through, and if I just played Cara Mia's route all the way through. So it's really fun. It's actually also really interesting that this game is rated M, and I will definitely flag things that might be very mature, but for the most part I'll keep things brief. But if you switch characters, you do end up sleeping with the guys, and the CGs aren't too graphic, it's just them shirtless. So it's not too bad. It's very PG. The game is more rated M for murder and stuff because they are mafias. But you only get to sleep with the guys if you essentially break up with whoever you're with and switch to dating a different guy. So I thought that was interesting. I feel like it kind of rewards you for not necessarily cheating because you do break up, but it kind of like rewards you for immediately breaking up with one guy to then go to another. So I thought that was an interesting dynamic. I don't know how I feel about it, but it was definitely something that I really haven't seen before in Otome games, so I thought that was really interesting. Everybody else apart from the Ozmafia has only 2 endings, so they're not too hard to do. And I would say altogether, if you were to complete each ending, you would have to do a minimum of 26 playthroughs. And I say a minimum because in the routes where you can switch over and date somebody else, there are certain dialogue things that if you get the dialogues correct, you get a bonus CG, and if you don't, you miss out on that CG. So I hadn't known that was a thing, and so I'd accidentally done it the first time when I went from Cara Mia to Axel and had gotten that bonus CG. But any other time that I went from one guy and switched to another, I didn't get that. So I ended up actually having to look up walkthroughs to figure out how to do that. because I can't 100% the CGs if I can't figure out how to get to them. But because of that, I had to essentially do 29 playthroughs of the game in order to make sure I had all of those bonus CGs. So that was really tricky. I don't really think that I enjoyed that part, just because, like, if you're already playing the game 26 times to complete every single route, like, you don't want to play an extra 3 times just because you missed, like, 2 to 3 dialogue choices to get this one bonus CG. So I didn't really like that aspect of it, but the CGs are worth it. I really enjoy the art style. They kind of are done in more of like a watercolor art style, which I really enjoy. It actually reminds me a lot of Diabolic Lovers, which is another really popular otome series. It's actually kind of funny, one of my favorite characters looks like a Diabolic Lover character, but I will get into that in a second. The playthroughs aren't too bad. I would say they're roughly 3 to 4 hours per route. If it's your first time playing through, if it's your second time playing through, you can use the skip button. Highly recommend it. You can actually change in the settings. I didn't know this until the very end of my playthroughs, but you can change it so that it will skip everything that you have read before, which I would recommend doing, because the second time you play through somebody's route, you get to unlock bonus scenes that are told from the guy's point of view of them kind of falling in love with you, and they're really interesting. So I definitely recommend that if you do decide to skip, you make sure to, like, at least read those in the parts that are seeming repetitive. So I thought that was kind of like a nice way to kind of reward you for playing a route a second time, especially like if it's to get like the other end and stuff. So highly recommend that. Now I'm gonna just go through some of the characters that I personally found really interesting and just kind of like give a brief summary. So first up is Cara Mia. He is the Don, or the leader of the Ozmafia, and he is represented by the lion from The Wizard of Oz. And so he is the cowardly lion, but this is after he's found his courage. I'd say he's really fun. He's really kind of like loving. He's kind of like overprotective and kind of, you're like an older brother, and like the way that he kind of like protects you and kind of like freaks out if you get hurt. But he's like really, really cute. The routes in which you switch to him, so if you play Kiri's route or Axel's route and you switch to Cara Mia and you get to sleep with him, are super funny and like not like over the top sexy, but there's like a couple of times which for plot reasons, like he ends up having to be chained up, and so like the other characters are making fun of him in a dirty fashion, and I found that really enjoyable. So definitely recommend him. He's probably my second favorite character, maybe. I don't know, I fluctuate a lot. Next up is Kiri. He is the second in command, and there's a word for his position, same with third in command, but they're like Italian mafia phrases, so I will just put it up here somewhere because I don't ever remember how to pronounce it. But he is the Scarecrow. He is quite literally the brains of the operation. He's the most intellectual person in the entire game, and he is not afraid to tell you that. He often likes to tease everybody under the sun, and typically I don't mind being teased in otome games. Like, tsunderes are typically my type, so I don't mind being teased, but he teases in a way that attacks your intelligence, and I don't like that. He's also just very annoying and like gets under your skin. So he is not my favorite character by any means, but he is kind of cocky, very selfish, but he does like open up himself to you, and I don't know, he's just he really wasn't my type. But he's definitely one that if you like really intellectual people who aren't afraid to tell you how intelligent they are, I would definitely suggest him for you. He was definitely not my type. Him as a character interested me, but also just made me want to punch him in the face. Third up, we have Axel. He is the third in the command, or the, whatever this Italian word is. And he kind of becomes your, like, guardian. So, like, when you want to go outside the Oz estate into, like, the Oz territory or go shopping in, like, one of the different territories, he's typically assigned to you, just to protect you. And so he kind of goes with you. He is, I guess, low-key a tsundere, not entirely. He is the robot, not the robot, they call him a robot. He is the Tin Man in the Wizard of Oz series, and so because of that, he does have a heart and he does have feelings, but he's still not good about sharing them. He tends to overthink and becomes really nervous, so he tries to, like, close himself off, just because he's worried that he will offend somebody or hurt somebody. So he does have a heart, and he's really sweet. He seems very abrasive, and this is why I say that he's low-key tsundere, is, like, he seems very, like, put off and, like, closed off and doesn't want to, like, interact with you and is only associating with you because he was told to by Cara Mia and Kiri. But once you get to know him, like, he's really, really sweet. He has a huge sweet tooth, and he's willing to protect you no matter what. So I really, really liked that about him. He's surprisingly emotional, but you do have to kind of, like, chip away to, like, break down his wall to kind of, like, have that heart-to-heart to him. But he's really sweet. Like, if you want more of, like, an innocent romance, I would definitely suggest Axel, because it's all about, like, trying to, like, break him out of his shell and, like, teach him what, like, love is. And so I think that's really cute. So it's definitely more of, like, a honeymoon phase type relationship where, while things do go wrong in it, it's definitely, you're still in that cute and fluffy phase of it throughout most of your relationship. So I really enjoyed that part. So up next is my personal favorite, Scarlet. And he is the one who I mentioned earlier looks like a Diabolic Lovers character. He, as you can see, if you play Diabolic Lovers, almost is exactly like Kanato. Looks-wise, at least, he's the complete opposite personality, thank God. But Scarlet is the replacement leader for a opposing mafia called Grimm. And essentially the Grimm Mafia is based off of Grimm fairy tales. And so Scarlet is Little Red Riding Hood. He is a guy. There are many mistakes that are made throughout both his route and a couple of other routes in which he does get mistaken for a girl. And it is funny, but he's also very much a guy. And he's just, like, super sweet. Like, he's very socially awkward because he doesn't really know how to, like, talk to people. He's very shy, very sweet, very serious, and very smart. And it's just kind of, like, interesting to see, like, how he kind of, like, grows as a person. Like, he's very much held in the past for most of his route. There are some things in which, for the plot, the Ozmafia forces your hand in some things, and I don't agree with that. But if you get the good end, it's all worth it. If you get the bad end, it's just kind of annoying. But either way, he's really, really good. He's kind of tsundere as well, but not entirely. He's just more kind of standoffish and shy and serious, and sometimes that comes off. He does yell at you a lot. Fuka is a very childish character, so you do get scolded by him a lot. You get scolded by everybody. It gets kind of to the point where during the playthroughs, I kind of wish that Fuka was a bit smarter because I was getting sick of being yelled at by people. Like, I was getting like secondhand embarrassment, like secondhand guilt because of how much she was getting yelled at by just basically everybody. Next up we have Caesar, who is essentially a wolf, I guess. Like, he's the leader of the wolf gang, who isn't a mafia. They're kind of just like do what they want. They live in the slums in the forest and they don't follow mafia rules. And Caesar is one of the first characters you meet in the series because he essentially finds you after you wake up and chases you around trying to kill you, and then spends most of his time in everybody's route, including his own, essentially chasing you around trying to kill you. I was really questioning how his route was going to work in the fact that he chases you around and wants to kill you, but his route ended up being actually really sweet. He's probably the actual official tsundere of the group, in which he threatens to kill you and then will give you like a necklace or like say something sweet. And so he's definitely the most tsundere. He's very blunt and kind of like speaks his mind, but at the same time like has moments where he can be very endearing. And it's kind of like interesting because like his route is literally like half of it is literally like him trying to kill you, and then the other half him going, "Why do you keep talking to me? I'm trying to kill you." And you're just like, "Oh yeah, no, don't worry, I'm totally scared." And like when we meet, when it's not peace treaty day, like I'm totally gonna be killed by you. Like, yeah, that's gonna happen. So I think that's really, really funny, and it kind of is interesting to see kind of characters who aren't bound by the mafia, because almost everybody else is a part of the mafia. Whereas he's one of the two characters apart from Fuka who isn't in the mafia. And so while he does follow some rules like the Sunday peace treaty, even though he doesn't want to, other than that he kind of does whatever he wants. Up is Robin Hood / Dr. Crow. Essentially he is the one and only doctor in the entire town. So with all of these mafias kind of fighting, he is the one and only person who single-handedly saves every single person in the town. His route at first I thought was just kind of sweet. I figured it was going to be a romance, but I figured it was going to be more of like a friendly romance. Turns out it was actually just very heartbreaking. His backstory is extremely tragic, and it's just like heartbreaking what he had to go through. And so because of that, the good end was sweet, but in a bittersweet way. Even when you win, you feel like you lose, in which you get to be with him, and it's like happy and sweet how you get to be with him, but the hurdle that he has to overcome is just so sad. And it's like a bittersweet sad, in which it's like really sweet, but it's also just so sad. His route was definitely interesting. It was not what I was expecting at all, but it was still really good. There's one hidden secret route, and that is Hamlin. So it by going down one of the Oz guys' routes, but instead of accepting the love of one of the Oz guys, you deny them, and that is how you get onto the secret route. So I was actually excited when I found out he had a route, because until I found out he was a hidden route, because I had a feeling he was, but it wasn't 100%. I was actually really excited and was hoping he had a hidden route, because his character seemed so interesting, because he seemed like an absolute psychopath, but also like there was something more, and that there was a reason that he became a psychopath. So I was kind of like intrigued by that. And his route ended up being very short, and I think it's because he, one, was like a criminal, so like it's hard to like do a lot. So his route was definitely the shortest route, and I feel like he kind of got cheated because there's so much I feel could have been done with his character, and instead he got like a super short route. So I was kind of like actually kind of disappointed in his route, just because his character did seem really sweet and really interesting when you did get to meet him. And then the good end is kind of like sad because it ends up being kind of like sacrificing, because obviously him being a criminal, you can't end up together, but it's like done so in a sweet way, whereas the bad end, it's done so in a kind of more maniacal way, in which it's kind of hard to tell if he's just acting a certain way or if that's who he really is. So I don't know, I kind of had high expectations for it, especially because it's the hidden route. Like, you want the hidden route to be maybe not the best route, but you at least want it to be on par with your other routes. But I felt like it was just very lacking, and they didn't do his character justice, and they could have. So I was kind of on the fence about that. Then the story's not over yet. So then there is an epilogue, which you can unlock if you complete at least one ending of every guy or every person's route. I didn't play the epilogue until I had completed everything. And so I essentially did it after I played those 29 playthroughs. And the epilogue, I both love and hate. Essentially, things in the epilogue, you, as Fuka, don't end up in a relationship with anybody for the epilogue, just because, like, because you have to do all the playthroughs, it doesn't put you in one thing, you're essentially just friends with everybody. And they gave Fuka a voice actress for the epilogue, which kind of threw me off, because when you play 29 playthroughs of your character being silent, you don't expect in the epilogue for her to start talking. Her voice wasn't bad, it just was, like, not expecting it, so I thought that was really interesting. It's actually really good because it gave you all of those answers to your questions that you end up developing through the route of, like, why, like, your character has amnesia, and, like, why she ended up where she was, and, like, all of these different things that kind of, like, get asked you. It's not 100% like, oh, like, I guess consistent. There are definitely plot holes in it, but I think the reason that feels like there are plot holes is because each route is slightly different, and so then when they're answering things in the epilogue, they try to go with a plot line that could cover a majority of the plots rather than each plot individually. So there are definitely plot holes and definitely things that I had to overlook. They weren't too bad, you could overlook them, especially if you kept in mind that it's supposed to cover everything rather than a specific arc. So I actually really enjoyed that. I thought they did a pretty good job of answering everything. The game's over, but it's not. Once you do your 26 through 29 playthroughs, however long it takes you to get every single CG, and then you play the epilogue and you get even more CGs, once you have that 99% completion and you only need one CG left, it unlocks the grand finale. So the grand finale is essentially the epilogue, but a few months later, and kind of like down the road, and it essentially gives you the happy ending that the epilogue almost gave you, but still didn't give you. And then the grand finale just kind of comes and is like, we're gonna fix everything that we just made you probably hate us for. We're gonna give it back to you and make it okay again. Do I think they could have done a better ending? Yes. Am I at least content that they decided to give us a better ending? Yes. So I kind of in that position where I'm like, I'll take what they'll give us. I wasn't particularly enthused, but I was at least happy that they didn't leave it where it was. So that was the game. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys think of the series so far. If you guys played Ozmafia, let me know like who your favorite character was. If you have any spoilers, please tag them. And if you have any like other Otome games or anything you want me, like whether shows, more games, let me know down in the comments below, and I will try to make an episode on it if I have the game or have the ability to get the game. I'm always looking for new otome, literally anything, like, I need that sustenance, like, I'm constantly always playing otome games or watching shows, so if you have any recommendations, I would highly appreciate them. And I hope you like this series so far. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about it, or give this video a like so I can kind of judge what people think about it. I know in the future I am going to try to do this every other week, preferably Mondays at 12 p.m. There should be new episodes out, and they are going to be kind of like this one, where probably like one game or one show per episode. I will also be doing more interesting things where I might do like fun games that have to do with otome, such as like maybe like ranking my favorite characters from like Utapri or something like that. So I just kind of want to have fun with this and just kind of like share my kind of like more geeky, like otome loving self that I don't really get to show often. So I appreciate you guys for allowing me to have this kind of outlet to share this and share my love, and I hope you guys appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you want to be notified about when the next episode of Otomania comes out, hit that notification bell, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Love you. Bye.